Chapter 1. A sweet beginning. The morning sun cast a gentle glow through the windows of sugar and sage, illuminating rows of golden pastries and delicate cakes that lined the wooden shelves. Emma moved gracefully between the counters, her hands dusted with flour, arranging croissants and tarts as she hummed a soft tune that seemed to float through the warm, fragrant air. The scent of fresh bread mingled with the sweetness of vanilla and cinnamon, creating a comforting aroma that wrapped around every visitor like a warm embrace. Emma loved these quiet mornings, when the bakery was just waking up and the world outside seemed distant and still. She treasured the moments when her creativity could flow freely and each pastry could reflect the care she poured into it. She carefully brushed powdered sugar over a tray of delicate lemon scones, smiling at the little imperfections that made them unique. The chime of the doorbell announced the arrival of her first customers. Regulars greeted her warmly, their smiles and cheerful chatter making the little space feel even more alive. Emma served them with practiced ease, placing steaming mugs of coffee alongside freshly baked treats, exchanging small talk that brightened her day. Each interaction reminded her why she had opened Sugar and Sage in the first place. Suddenly, a soft patter of rain against the windows caught her attention. She glanced outside and saw a man hurrying along the sidewalk, holding a briefcase above his head in a futile attempt to keep dry. His dark coat was soaked and his hair plastered to his forehead, and he looked momentarily lost before spotting the bakery. Without hesitation, he pushed the door open, shaking off the rain and glancing around with a mixture of relief and curiosity. Emma offered a welcoming smile and gestured to a dry seat near the window. The man thanked her quietly and sat down, shedding his wet coat and placing it over the back of the chair. He looked around at the assortment of pastries and finally selected a small chocolate eclair, savoring it with a quiet reverence that made Emma smile. She watched him from behind the counter, noticing the way his eyes lit up at the first bite. How a small laugh escaped him. He savored the sweetness. There was something about his presence that felt warm and genuine, and for a moment, Emma forgot the rain outside and the rhythm of the morning. It was a brief encounter, simple and unassuming, but it left a soft, lingering warmth in her chest that she could not quite explain. The man caught her gaze and offered a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of the connection they had shared in that short, ordinary moment. Emma returned the nod, a quiet hope blooming in her heart that perhaps this rainy morning had brought more than just a customer to her bakery. It had brought a spark of something tender and unexpected, a promise of possibilities she had not dared to imagine before. Chapter 2. Stirring curiosity. Next morning, the rain had cleared, leaving the streets of Willow Creek glistening under the soft sunlight. Emma arrived at Sugar and Sage earlier than usual, enjoying the quiet solitude before the first customers arrived. She tied her apron carefully, brushed the crumbs from her counter, and began preparing the day's pastries. The rhythmic motion of kneading dough and arranging trays brought a comforting sense of order to her morning. As she was placing a fresh batch of cinnamon rolls into the display case, the bell above the door jingled. Emma looked up and froze for a brief moment, her heart giving a small, unexpected flutter. It was him, the man from the rainy day, standing there with a slightly shy smile and a spark of familiarity in his eyes. He was carrying a rolled-up sketch under his arm and looked around the bakery as if seeing it for the first time. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm and steady. "I thought I would stop by again." Emma returned his greeting with a polite smile, her curiosity piqued. "Good morning. I am glad you came back. Would you like to try something new today?" Luke nodded, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "I would love to. Everything smelled amazing yesterday, and I could not resist coming back." As he sampled a flaky almond croissant, he and Emma began to talk more openly than before. He told her about moving to Willow Creek for work, his role as an architect, and how he had always admired small towns for their charm and sense of community. Emma listened intently, her initial caution giving way to genuine interest. She shared small pieces of her own story as well, about growing up in Willow Creek, her love for baking, and the dream she had nurtured 4 years of running her own bakery. There was an ease in their conversation that surprised Emma. Luke asked questions with a genuine curiosity and listened with patience, never rushing or interrupting. He noticed the little details about the bakery, from the way the sunlight fell across the counter to the carefully chosen handwritten labels on each pastry. Emma realized that he saw more than the surface, that he appreciated the thought and care she had poured into her work. As the morning went on, Luke lingered longer than expected, and they discovered shared interests beyond the bakery. They both loved quiet walks in the town, exploring small bookstores, and noticing the little joys in everyday life. Emma found herself laughing at his gentle humor and enjoying the way he observed the world with a thoughtful attention. When he finally rose to leave, Luke offered a warm smile. "I will be back soon. I have a feeling this bakery is becoming my favorite place in town." Emma nodded, feeling a flutter of anticipation she had not experienced in a long time. As she watched him walk away, she realized that curiosity had begun to stir something deeper within her. It was not just the pastries or the cozy atmosphere that drew him back, but a connection that felt unexpectedly tender. The thought of seeing him again filled her day with a quiet excitement and a gentle hope that perhaps something meaningful was beginning to grow between them. Chapter 3. Flour and Friendship Over. The following weeks, Emma and Luke's acquaintance slowly blossomed into a comfortable friendship. Their meetings at Sugar and Sage became a regular occurrence, and the bakery seemed brighter when he was there. Emma found herself looking forward to his visits, to the way his presence made the room feel warmer and the air lighter. He often offered to help with deliveries, carrying heavy boxes with an easy strength that made her tasks feel less burdensome. She appreciated the simple acts of kindness, feeling a quiet admiration for his thoughtfulness. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the bakery windows and painted golden patterns on the wooden floor, Emma invited Luke to test a new pastry she had been experimenting with. Flour dusted their hands and aprons as they worked side by side, laughing over small mishaps and savoring the playful messiness of the process. Emma noticed how naturally he moved around the kitchen, careful not to disturb her rhythm, but offering small suggestions with an encouraging tone. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on dreams, favorite memories, and subtle glimpses of past challenges. Luke shared stories of his childhood in a bustling city, of quiet escapes to sketch in hidden corners, and of his hope to design buildings that brought warmth and life to the communities they served. Emma listened, fascinated by the depth behind his calm exterior, and shared her own experiences of learning to bake, of the late nights experimenting with recipes, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing someone enjoy something she had created. Their friendship deepened through these moments, built not on grand gestures but on the small, meaningful exchanges that revealed who they truly were. Luke admired the care Emma put into each pastry and the gentle way she treated everyone who walked through the door. Emma found herself inspired by his patience and his subtle encouragement, noticing how he celebrated her successes without overshadowing them. One afternoon, as they cleaned up together after a long day of baking, Luke paused to watch Emma arrange the pastries in the display case. "You really have a gift," he said softly, "not just for baking, but for making people feel welcome and cared for. This place, it's a reflection of you." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a quiet pride tempered with humility. "I just want people to enjoy what I make," she replied, brushing flour from her hands. "I never thought anyone would notice the little things." Luke smiled, a gentle understanding in his eyes. "I notice, and I think the world could use more of that attention to detail, more of that kindness." As the weeks continued, their bond strengthened, built on shared laughter, whispered confidences, and the comforting rhythm of daily life in the bakery. They discovered that friendship, when nurtured with care and honesty, could be a foundation for something far more tender. In the quiet moments between flour and frosting, Emma realized that Luke had become more than a visitor to her bakery. He had become a presence that brightened her days and stirred feelings she had long kept tucked away, feelings that promised a warmth and companionship she had never anticipated. Chapter 4. Cracks in the icingers. The days grew warmer, and the town of Willow Creek braced the soft bloom of spring. Emma began to feel a quiet unease beneath the cheerful routines of the bakery. Despite the laughter she shared with Luke and the gentle rhythm of her mornings, a subtle worrying had begun to creep into her thoughts. She had always taken pride in her work, but lately, the fear of failure felt heavier, pressing at the edges of her confidence. What if a new recipe flopped? What if someone noticed a small mistake? The questions buzzed in her mind, unrelenting and sharp, undermining the joy she usually felt in her craft. Luke, ever attentive, began to notice the flickers of doubt in her expressions, and the way her hands hesitated over the dough. One afternoon, as he helped carry a large delivery of pastries to a neighboring cafe, he gently asked, "Emma, are you all right? You seem a little distracted today." Emma shook her head quickly, offering a polite smile. "I'm fine. Just thinking about the orders and the new pastries for tomorrow. It's nothing to worry about." Luke studied her for a moment, sensing the weight behind her words. "It is okay to worry, you know, but you are talented. People come here just for the pastries, but because of the warmth you put into them. Don't let your fears take that away from you." Her cheeks flushed with a mix of gratitude and embarrassment, and she nodded, realizing that his encouragement was genuine, not fleeting. His words planted a small seed of reassurance that seemed to soften the tension she had been carrying. Despite this support, small misunderstandings began to ripple through the tranquility of the bakery. A rumor started circulating in town about a competing bakery, suggesting that 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 might be struggling. Emma, sensitive to the whispers, felt her confidence waver. She withdrew slightly, smiling politely at Luke during his visits, but keeping her conversations brief and measured. She did not want him to see the cracks in her composure, yet the silence between them carried a weight heavier than any words. Luke noticed the change, though he did not push. He offered quiet presence instead, bringing small gestures of kindness, a freshly brewed cup of tea, a carefully folded note of encouragement, a smile that spoke volumes without speaking. Slowly, these gestures chipped away at the walls Emma had built around herself, reminding her that someone cared about her beyond her talent or her bakery. One rainy evening, after the last customer had left and the bakery smelled of warm bread and vanilla, Luke stayed behind to help her clean up. They worked side by side in a comfortable silence, each movement purposeful yet gentle. At one point, he brushed flour from her sleeve, and their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. "Emma," he said softly, "don't let fear make you forget why you started. You have a gift, and you bring so much light to this town. I believe in you, even when you doubt yourself." Her heart warmed at his words, and she realized that cracks in the icing did not mean the cake was ruined. Sometimes, it simply meant that life was real, that moments of doubt could coexist with moments of care and connection. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that even in the uncertainty, there was tenderness waiting to be embraced, a quiet promise that perhaps friendship and something more could withstand the small storms of life. Chapter 5. Recipes for the hearter. Soft golden light filled 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 one quiet afternoon, casting a warm glow over the rows of pastries that lined the shelves. Emma had been experimenting with a new recipe for a delicate raspberry tart, carefully folding the sweetened fruit into buttery pastry and arranging them with meticulous care. The bakery smelled of fresh raspberries and warm dough, a combination that made the small space feel alive and inviting. She was so absorbed in her work that she barely noticed the bell above the door chime until a familiar voice called her name. "Emma, I hope I'm not interrupting." Luke stood in the doorway, a small wicker basket tucked under his arm. He smiled as he stepped inside, shaking off the faint chill of the afternoon breeze. "I brought a few ingredients. I thought maybe we could try something new together." Emma blinked in surprise, a smile tugging at her lips. "You want to bake with me?" she asked, her voice a mix of amusement and curiosity. Luke nodded, setting the basket on the counter. I thought it might be fun. We can experiment a little. I promise not to get in your way." The afternoon passed in a whirl of laughter, flour, and gentle teasing. Luke proved surprisingly adept at handling the delicate tasks Emma assigned, carefully stirring batters and learning how to fold the pastry without overworking it. Emma found herself watching him with quiet admiration, noticing the patience in his movements and the way he offered small compliments that never felt forced. As they worked, they shared more personal stories. Luke spoke of his early days as an architect, of the challenges he had faced moving to a new town, and the excitement he felt at designing spaces that brought people joy. Emma, in turn, revealed memories of her grandmother teaching her to bake as a child, of the long nights experimenting with recipes, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing a customer's face light up at the first bite of something she had made. The act of creating together seemed to bridge a gap that had lingered between them. In the simplicity of rolling dough and arranging berries, they discovered a deeper connection, one built not on grand gestures, but on shared moments and mutual respect. When Luke accidentally flicked a small bit of flour onto Emma's nose, she laughed, and he mimicked the gesture, dusting his own face playfully. They paused for a moment, smiling at one another, the world outside the bakery falling away, until it was just the two of them surrounded by the comforting warmth of the kitchen. By the time the tarts were baked and cooling on the counter, a quiet intimacy had settled over the bakery. Emma realized that this moment, ordinary in its simplicity, felt extraordinary. Luke had not only helped create something delicious, but had also touched her heart with his kindness, his attention, and his genuine delight in her company. As he prepared to leave, Luke held one of the tarts carefully in his hands. "For you," he said softly, offering it with a warm smile. "To remember our first collaboration." Emma accepted it, her fingers brushing against his briefly, and she felt a spark of something tender and unexpected. "Thank you, Luke," she whispered, a soft warmth spreading through her chest. "This was wonderful," he nodded, his eyes reflecting the same quiet happiness she felt. "It really was. I think we make a good team." As he walked out into the afternoon sun, Emma realized that the bakery had become more than just a place of work or a refuge. It had become a space where connection could flourish, where laughter and care could transform ordinary tasks into something heartfelt and meaningful. And in that gentle, flower-dusted afternoon, she felt the first stirrings of a feeling that went beyond friendship, a tender hope that perhaps her heart had found someone worth trusting. Chapter 6. A stormy mix. Calm rhythm of life in Willow Creek was disrupted one afternoon when a sudden problem arose at 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿. A shipment of ingredients that Emma had been relying on for a week's worth of pastries had been delayed, leaving her with half-prepared recipes and an anxious knot in her stomach. She moved quickly through the bakery, attempting to adjust the day's menu and reorganize the schedule. But the tension in her movements did not escape Luke's notice. He arrived just as she was stacking trays of imperfect pastries, her hands trembling slightly from frustration. "Emma, what's going on?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. She sighed, wiping flour from her forehead. "The ingredients didn't arrive on time, and some of the orders have to be ready this afternoon. I'm trying to figure out how to manage, but it's just a lot." Luke stepped closer, offering a calm presence that contrasted with her frazzled energy. "We can handle this together. Let me help you. We'll figure it out one step at a time." Despite his encouragement, Emma felt a flicker of defensiveness. "I know you mean well, Luke, but I have to handle this. I can't rely on someone else to fix my problems." Her voice was sharper than she intended, and she immediately felt a pang of regret for the words. Luke paused, his eyes softening as he considered her reaction. "I understand," he said gently. "I just want to help, but I don't want to overstep. I'm here if you need me." The tension between them lingered like a heavy cloud in the warm, fragrant air of the bakery. They continued to work side by side, but a quiet distance had settled, a barrier created by pride and the fear of vulnerability. Miscommunication magnified small frustrations, and even the simplest task, like arranging trays or frosting pastries, felt laden with unspoken emotions. As the afternoon wore on, Emma realized that the challenge of the delayed shipment was not just about the ingredients. It was about trust, about allowing someone else into the small, carefully constructed world she had built for herself. Luke, she realized, had always approached her life with patience and care, but her own insecurities had made it difficult to fully accept that support. Finally, as the last pastries were neatly arranged and the orders prepared, Emma paused and looked at Luke. I am sorry, she said quietly. I didn't mean to snap at you. I get worried when things go wrong, and I forget that help doesn't mean weakness. Luke smiled, a warmth returning to his expression. It's okay. We all have our moments. The important thing is that we finished together, and we did it without losing sight of what matters. Emma felt a wave of relief, the tension dissolving as she realized that challenges did not have to drive a wedge between them. In fact, facing difficulties together could strengthen the bond they shared. That day, amidst the warm aroma of baked goods and the quiet hum of the bakery, Emma understood that love, friendship, and trust were like recipes themselves. They required patience, careful attention, and the willingness to navigate storms, knowing that the sweetness at the end would be worth every challenge faced along the way. By the time the bakery quieted in the evening and the last customer had left, Emma and Luke shared a lingering glance of understanding, a silent promise that the trials they faced would not break them. Instead, they would become part of the tender story they were slowly creating together, a story built not only on flour and sugar, but also on patience, care, and the courage to let someone in. Chapter 7. Sweet reflections. Morning sunlight spilled softly through the windows of Sugar and Sage, casting warm patterns on the wooden floors and the rows of neatly arranged pastries. Emma arrived early, as usual, but instead of immersing herself immediately in baking, she stood by the counter, sipping a cup of coffee and letting her mind wander. The events of the previous week, the minor conflict with Luke, and the strain of managing the bakery weighed gently on her thoughts. She realized how much she valued his presence, how his steady encouragement had become a quiet anchor in her life, and how deeply she missed his comforting smile during the tension they had shared. Luke, meanwhile, found himself walking along the familiar streets of Willow Creek, his sketchbook tucked under his arm. He paused beneath the shade of a flowering tree and considered the moments he had spent in the bakery with Emma, the way she carefully arranged each pastry, the soft laughter that often escaped her when she was pleased with the creation, and the subtle warmth in her eyes when she shared stories from her past all lingered vividly in his mind. He realized that his admiration for her had grown beyond mere fondness. He cared for her in a way that felt both natural and profound, and the thought of seeing her again filled him with a quiet anticipation. That afternoon, Emma found a few stolen moments to reflect on her own feelings. She thought about the way Luke had listened without judgment, the way he had patiently helped her navigate challenges, and the gentle gestures that revealed his thoughtfulness. She recalled the flour dusted on his sleeves during their baking sessions, the way his eyes lit up when tasting a new pastry, and the subtle, unspoken support he had offered during the stressful week with the delayed shipment. Each memory brought a tender warmth to her heart and the realization that perhaps the boundaries she had carefully maintained were ready to soften. As she wiped down the counters and arranged the last of the day's pastries, Emma considered how much she had grown since Luke had entered her life. Her confidence had been tested, her patience stretched, and her heart stirred in ways she had not anticipated. She understood now that friendship and companionship were not always straightforward, but they were worth the risk of vulnerability. She allowed herself to hope, quietly, that they could find their way back to the easy laughter and shared moments that had made their bond so special. Luke, too, spent the evening in thoughtful reflection. He thought about the tender moments he had shared with Emma, the small ways she had touched his life, and the warmth that seemed to radiate from her presence. He recognized that his feelings had deepened beyond admiration and friendship, and he felt a strong desire to nurture the connection they had built. The thought of allowing himself to express those feelings both exhilarated and terrified him. Yet he understood that taking the step was necessary if they were to move forward together. In the quiet hours of the evening, as the town settled under a blanket of soft twilight, both Emma and Luke found themselves imagining what it would be like to bridge the distance that had grown between them. Their reflections were gentle, patient, and filled with hope. Each realized that love was not about grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but about the quiet, persistent care and attention shared in everyday moments. By the time the moon rose over Willow Creek, Emma and Luke were both quietly preparing to take the next step. The tension and uncertainty of recent days had allowed them to see the depth of their feelings more clearly. In their hearts, they understood that reconciliation and tenderness awaited, and that the foundation they had built through laughter, flower, and shared stories was strong enough to weather any lingering doubt. The night carried with it the promise of new beginnings, of gentle words spoken and hearts opened, as both prepared to embrace the love that had been quietly growing between them. Chapter 8. Heartfelt confection. Morning air carried a gentle warmth as Emma arrived at 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. The bakery bathed in soft sunlight that highlighted the golden crusts and vibrant fruits on display. She felt a flutter of nervous anticipation, a mixture of hope and apprehension, because today she had decided to reach out to Luke. The small tension that had lingered between them for the past week weighed on her, and she knew that the only way forward was to let the walls she had built around her heart soften. When the familiar chime of the doorbell rang, Emma turned to see Luke standing there, sketchbook under his arm and a tentative smile on his face. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and for a moment, the bakery seemed to glow even brighter. "Emma," he said softly, stepping inside. "I wasn't sure if you would want me to come." She returned his smile, feeling a warmth that spread from her chest to her fingertips. "I'm glad you're here. I thought maybe we could bake together again, like before." Luke's eyes sparkled, and he set his sketchbook aside. "I would love that." They moved around the kitchen with an easy rhythm, the air filled with the familiar scents of vanilla, butter, and sugar. Flour dusted the counters and their aprons as they rolled dough, mixed batters, and arranged fruit toppings. Each gesture, small and deliberate, carried a quiet intimacy, a shared understanding that had deepened since the first time they had baked together. As they worked, Luke presented a small surprise. From the basket he had brought, he carefully retrieved a set of delicate chocolate molds and a few rare ingredients he had sourced from the nearby town. "I thought we could try something special today," he said, his voice warm with anticipation. "I remembered you mentioned wanting to experiment with chocolate shapes for your tarts." Emma felt a wave of affection and admiration. "You remembered," she said softly, her eyes bright. "That's thoughtful of you." Together, they molded chocolates into delicate hearts and stars, filling them with rich ganache and placing them atop the fresh pastries. The process required patience and careful hands, and each time one of their creations came out perfectly, they exchanged delighted smiles and quiet laughter. The shared activity allowed them to speak more openly than they had in days, sharing thoughts, small confessions, and gentle teasing that brought them closer. Luke paused for a moment, brushing a stray lock of hair from Emma's face. "I enjoy moments like this," he said quietly. "I feel like I get to know you in ways I wouldn't otherwise, and it makes me happy." Emma felt her heart swell, and she realized that she had missed more than just his presence. She had missed the ease of his companionship, the gentle reassurance of his words, and the quiet way he made her feel seen and valued. "I feel the same," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. I'm glad you're here." The afternoon passed in a gentle haze of baking, laughter, and quiet conversation. By the time the last tart was carefully plated and the chocolate decorations set, their connection had deepened into something tender and unmistakable. There was a comfort in their closeness, a sense of belonging that neither had fully acknowledged before, but both now recognized. As Luke prepared to leave, he held out one of the chocolate hearts to Emma. "For you," he said, a subtle warmth in his tone. to remember today, and everything we've shared." Emma accepted it, her fingers brushing against his briefly. The simple touch carried a world of meaning, and she felt a tender surge of hope and affection. "Thank you, Luke," she said, a soft smile playing on her lips. Today was perfect," he nodded, his own smile gentle and full of quiet promise. "It really was, and I hope it is just the beginning." As he walked out into the sunlight, Emma stood by the counter, holding the chocolate heart and feeling a warmth that reached far beyond the bakery. She knew now that the walls she had built around her heart could come down, that love and connection could flourish in the simplest moments, and that the tender bond between them had grown into something worth cherishing and protecting. Chapter 9. Love in full bloom. Spring had fully arrived in Willow Creek, bringing with it a soft warmth that made the town feel alive with color and energy. The streets were lined with flowering trees, their petals drifting lazily in the gentle breeze, and the air carried the faint sweetness of blossoms mingled with the scent of fresh bread and pastries from Sugar and Sage. Today was special for Emma. She had planned a small community event at the bakery to celebrate the season and to share her love of baking with everyone who had supported her over the years. She wanted the bakery to feel like more than just a shop. It was a place where warmth, laughter, and connection could flourish. Emma arrived early to prepare, her heart fluttering with excitement and a hint of nervousness. The tables were arranged with delicate treats, fresh flowers in small vases, and handwritten menus detailing the assortment of pastries she had prepared. She moved around the bakery with focused energy, checking every detail and adjusting the display to ensure that everything felt welcoming. Luke arrived shortly after, carrying a basket of flowers and a quiet smile. "Everything looks amazing," he said, stepping inside and brushing a stray petal from one of the vases. "You've outdone yourself." Emma felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you for helping," she said softly. "I was nervous about organizing everything on my own." Luke offered a reassuring nod. "I'll be here for whatever you need. Today is about celebrating all the good things in this town, and you deserve every bit of it." As the event began, the bakery filled with familiar faces, neighbors, and curious newcomers. Laughter and chatter blended with the clinking of plates and the aroma of warm pastries. Children wandered between tables, their eyes wide with delight at the colorful treats, while adults lingered to share stories and compliment Emma on her creations. Luke moved among the guests alongside Emma, helping wherever he could and offering gentle encouragement to anyone who had questions or compliments. Throughout the day, Emma found herself stealing glances at Luke, noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the quiet attentiveness he showed to every detail, and the subtle gestures of support he offered without drawing attention to himself. She realized, with a quiet swell of affection, that he had become not just a presence in her life, but an essential part of the warmth and joy she felt in her work and in her heart. As the event drew to a close, Emma and Luke found a moment of calm behind the counter. The bakery was quieter now, the sun dipping low and casting golden light across the room. Luke took her hand gently, holding it with a tenderness that made her heart beat a little faster. "You did beautifully today," he said softly. "Everyone can see how much love you put into this bakery and into everything you do." Emma squeezed his hand, feeling a mixture of gratitude and something deeper stirring within her. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. "You've been here through the small moments and the challenges, and it means more than I can say." Luke leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching, and whispered, "Emma, I care about you more than I realized. Being with you, helping you, sharing these moments, it's more important to me than I can put into words." A tender silence followed, filled only by the faint hum of the town outside and the soft scent of pastries lingering in the air. Emma felt a warmth bloom in her chest, a feeling that had been growing quietly through flower-dusted mornings, laughter, and shared efforts in the bakery. She realized that their friendship had blossomed into something far more profound, something that was ready to be acknowledged and cherished. With a soft smile, she whispered back, "I care about you too, Luke, more than I expected, more than I thought possible." They shared a quiet, lingering moment, hands intertwined and hearts aligned, knowing that the love that had been slowly growing between them had finally come into full bloom. The bakery, once just a place of work, had become a space where connection, tenderness, and affection thrived, and together they felt the comforting certainty that they had found something worth holding on to. In the warm glow of the setting sun, surrounded by the scent of baked treats and the gentle energy of the town, Emma and Luke embraced the love they had nurtured, ready to step into the future together. Chapter 10. A tender touch. Early morning light spilled softly into sugar and sage, illuminating the bakery in a warm, golden glow. Emma moved through the familiar space with a sense of calm and contentment she had never known before. The shelves were lined with fresh pastries, the counter spotless, and the air carried the comforting aroma of warm bread, cinnamon, and vanilla. It was a peaceful morning, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt a sense of completeness, a quiet joy that radiated from the simple act of being in her bakery and in the life she had built. Luke arrived shortly after, a small bouquet of wildflowers in hand and a bright smile on his face. His presence felt natural, comforting, and essential, as if he belonged in the space as much as she did. "Good morning, Emma," he said softly, placing the flowers in a small vase on the counter. "I thought these would brighten your day." Emma's heart lifted at the gesture, and she returned his smile. "They do, thank you. You always know just how to make everything feel special." The morning passed in a gentle rhythm. They worked side by side, baking, arranging pastries, and serving the early customers with laughter and light-hearted conversation. Every movement, every shared glance, carried a subtle intimacy born from weeks of shared moments, small kindnesses, and quiet care. The bakery seemed to hum with a sense of harmony, the space itself reflecting the warmth that had grown between them. As the day went on, Emma and Luke stole a few moments away from the bustling activity to sit by the window, the soft light casting patterns across their hands as they touched briefly. Luke reached for her hand with a tenderness that spoke volumes, his eyes reflecting the depth of his feelings. "Emma," he said gently, "being here with you, seeing everything you've built, and sharing these moments with you, it means more to me than I can ever express. You've brought a sweetness into my life that I didn't know I was missing." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of safety and affection that had grown steadily with every shared laugh, every collaborative baking session, and every quiet conversation. "Luke, you've done the same for me," she replied softly. "You've shown me kindness, patience, and understanding in ways I never expected. Being with you, it feels like home." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, letting their hands remain intertwined, savoring the gentle peace of the morning. Outside, the town moved quietly, unaware of the tender bond that had blossomed in the heart of the little bakery. Inside, the soft hum of life, the warmth of the sun, and the comforting scent of baked goods created a cocoon where nothing else mattered except the presence of each other. Luke leaned closer, resting his forehead lightly against hers. "Emma, I promise to be here, to share these moments, to support you, and to cherish everything we have. I don't want to imagine my days without you." Emma closed her eyes, feeling the sincerity and depth of his words wrap around her heart like a gentle embrace. "And I promise the same, Luke. Together, we'll face whatever comes, and we'll make it sweet, just like everything we create here." The morning sun climbed higher, casting a soft glow over the bakery, and they shared a quiet, perfect moment, hands still entwined, hearts aligned, and a gentle understanding that their love had taken root and would continue to grow. In the simple acts of baking, sharing, and caring for one another, Emma and Luke had discovered a tender love built on patience, kindness, and quiet devotion. Sugar and Sage was no longer just a bakery, it was a place of beginnings, of warmth, and of a love that promised to endure. In that cozy, fragrant space, surrounded by golden pastries and sunlight, they smiled at each other, knowing that their hearts had found a home in one another, and that the tender touch they had nurtured would carry them forward, hand in hand, into the many sweet mornings to come.